want to raise up a couple of issues written in one of the governmental accountability reports to the chairman. It deals with an issue that has probably been looked at, but not very closely. This issue of disproportionality. Issue of disproportionality is the issue that deals with the number of African American children who are ultimately suspected of being abused and neglected by their parents and ultimately put into foster care. The disproportionality issue is of great concern because in the foster care system, in the general population, we have more than 59% of the population of the children in this country who are white. And in their representation in the foster care system, they only represent about 41% of the people. But the African American community has 15% of the population in the United States. But their children represent more than 34% of the children in foster care. Hispanics, 19%. But their representation in foster care is only 17%. The African American has twice as many children in foster care than their relative numbers in the community. That means that African American children are twice as likely to be put into foster care. And the reasons for that are quite clear. The report that was written in 1997 shows and reflects the fact that there's a lot of cultural biases that contribute to the number of children, African American children especially, going into foster care. The lack of affordable housing, substance abuse, and lack of parental training have all been earmarked as reasons for African American children going into foster care in much larger numbers. We also know that the mandatory reporting sources, typically in African American communities, typically people who are not of the community, white doctors, white psychologists, whenever they see a situation that even remotely resembles abuse, they will more quickly report that and cause it to be used as a basis for having the children removed. Statistically speaking, they say that in the United States, we have this issue of poverty, which obviously affects African Americans much more readily than any other group of people. In the United States, every 43 seconds, a child is born into poverty. Every 53 minutes, the United States, a child dies because of issues related to poverty, including foster care. In 2002, the official report said that poverty was one of the leading reasons for death in the United States. $18,250 was considered the adequate income for a family of four. But statistically and federally speaking, $27,000 is the minimum amount of money that is needed for a family of four to survive in the United States. How many of us know families that are surviving on much less than that today? The number of poor people in this nation, it would be, if they were put together, the second largest state in the Union. It would be a state bigger than Texas, a state bigger than Florida, a state bigger than New York. It would hold more people than Connecticut, Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, and Nevada combined. We must be concerned about this number because 33 million people are trapped in this cycle of poverty. And African Americans have been disproportionately affected in this area. But we must understand that this problem can be addressed, but has never been officially addressed by the United States Congress in any substantial, substantive way. But there are things that we can do to eradicate poverty in the earth. It's not a mystery. You can reverse the cycle of poverty, not just here, but abroad as well. The United Nations has taken on the initiative to try to end poverty in America. U.S. Congress has attempted it. World Bank has attempted it. International Monetary Fund has attempted it. But I submit to you that we will never be able to eradicate poverty or unlock the secrets to breaking the cycle of poverty until and unless men and women of God who've been called to this mission take up this assignment. There are strategic ways that we can do this to increase the opportunities of poor people to avoid foster care and to get their portion of the American dream. The primary way to do that is to increase access to education. Education is the single most important reason and means for accessing your way out of poverty in this country, even to this day. So making education either free or very affordable, at not just the high school levels, but the college levels and professional levels, will be the first step for this legislature to do, to end the cycle of poverty and to end the number of children in foster care. Secondly, fund job training. Many of the people that are living in our borders just do not have the sufficient job skills necessary to be able to find a job, get a job, keep a job, and excel in a job. So funding for job training is the second most important thing we can do to break the cycle of poverty and to end foster care roles and reduce them in substantial ways. Thirdly, we need to fund economic development opportunities in the communities. Fourth, we need to create access to affordable housing. It is clearly one of the most important pieces of legislation that can be done in order to increase the ability of children to stay in homes, even in neighborhoods that have been traditionally considered hostile and violent. Fifthly, we need to fund more community-controlled self-help organizations, including faith-based organizations. Give the churches and the faith-based organizations an opportunity to use the skills and talents that are obviously in the church to be able to change the way in which people look at themselves and look at their ability to get and keep jobs. We also need to create legislation to end discriminatory banking practices. This is one of the key components. Banks are considered traditionally vehicles for financial success because they provide financial access. We need to make banks more accountable to the communities in which they serve. We need to relook at the Community Reinvestment Act, force that law at every level so that people are considered and will be considered for loans that they are otherwise qualified for. Fifth way to break the cycle of poverty and reduce the foster care rolls is to create greater access to business and home loans. Eighth, we need to commission the Attorney General to go after predatory lenders. We know that predatory lending was a major problem in the early 80s. It continues to be a problem today. Ninth thing we need to do is to create legislation to protect minorities from subprime loans and loan sharks. This problem has, of course, created the current financial situation that we find ourselves in even today. And so in order for us to be able to break the cycle of poverty, we're going to need to have legislation that will attack and put substantial penalties for those people and those financial institutions that are guilty of subprime lending and loan sharking. Tenthly, we need to fund creative initiatives to gain access to credit by poor people. Access to credit and building a proper credit history is key to breaking the cycle of poverty and getting foster care rolls reduced. 12th, we need to fund creative small businesses and restaurant incubators to give people a learning experience on how to be in business and how to stay in business. 13th, we need to improve transportation services to allow poor people to access jobs. There are many jobs that are out there, especially in the South, that cannot be reached because people do not have means to transportation. If they had sufficient transportation, they could actually keep jobs or find jobs in the inner city areas. Investing in those areas would be critical to breaking the cycle of poverty. 14th, we need to promote cooperative business initiatives. And 15th, we need to increase access to health benefits to the poor. Healthcare has always been a primary concern, and it continues to be a primary reason why children come into foster care, either because of their illness or illness of their parents. These short-term solutions can reduce foster care placement. And if we invest in them and do them in large numbers, we will be able to reduce those foster care ills by reducing the foster care numbers.